What's the craziest project or app that you've seen built with some of your open source tools?
Oh man, people have used it to make millions of dollars. It's not like I ever gave up, but I mean, it's sad, like generally. We need to bring back the youth, the cypherpunk, gritty, fucking build the awesome thing that the world needs. What's up?
What's good?
Ethereum looks good.
Austin Griffith, good to see you.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I know we're doing some student events and we're in the middle of that mini tour, but I just thought it would be interesting to sit down for a little bit and understand a little bit of your journey into crypto and kind of how you think about things. I remember when I was like a college student, I came across a lot of the resources you put out when I was first learning about crypto, so it's kind of cool to see that like arc come here and do this. So I guess to get started, maybe can you tell me a little bit more about who's Austin Griffith?
Cool, yeah. I don't know, I'm kind of a nerd, but like a builder. I like to create things that people use. I like to do DevRel before I really even realized what DevRel was.
I think a lot of people still don't know what DevRel is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I like building things. I like teaching. I like, trying to have an impact. I like trying to, give people cool tools and abilities. Raised in a small town. My parents were teachers. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can get into more, but that's it so far, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously you started your journey, working with private companies, building closed source tools. What was your inspiration to, I guess, leave that behind and jump into Web3 and build more towards like open source tools and, more positive sum in a more positive sum environment? Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't like working at private companies on purpose. It was just like the way to survive. And I built like some cloud video encoding software. I built some like marketing-like software. It was more like microservice architecture software for a marketing company, allowing devs to deploy locally. It was like a software layer on top of Docker that was just like a point and click kind of system that allowed you to deploy a microservice locally, but then you could, with another click, deploy it to a cloud service. So it was like the ability to put microservices to, local stage and production into our fleet. And then, so it was closed source and it was a cool piece of software and I couldn't open source it. So like my boss didn't like the idea of us open sourcing it. So I feel like that, may have partially weaponized me into the Web3 world. Even before that though, I was building games on Facebook. When Facebook first opened up their developer platform, similar to how I discovered Ethereum, it was like an app store where you could deploy apps and get some interesting kinds of distribution and do some interesting kinds of things that you couldn't do before, like leverage your friend graph to do things within the game. So long before Zynga, I had like a horse racing game with you would like raise your little horse and took care of him, and then he would run in races, and the races were like you could bet on it with a in-game currency. And so a lot of things that led, eventually we saw in those games in like 2008, 2009. I was there building, but then like Zynga kind of took it and ran. But yeah, that like all of that led me into Ethereum because I loved building games. I loved building things that people used. I loved app platforms and ways to get distribution. I built, scalability, video encoding, cloud services, Docker stuff. And I was deep down a rabbit hole on Docker and totally missed the Ethereum ICO. But then in 2016, I discovered it, started building on it. And by 2017, I was like making games and stuff, but no one really cared about the games. I showed up at ETH Denver like 2018 with this like mobile game. No one cared. It was like really smooth burner wallets. It was on XDAI, so sidechain, but it felt like apps feel today, and no one cared. It was you know what, maybe too early or not cool enough or something. But where I really had a splash was when I started doing DevRel, which I didn't know what DevRel was at the time, but there was all this cool tech and no one was really showing it off. And I found things like meta transactions and burner wallets and the user experience improvements that those brought. And I just showed off like weekly demos of me shipping interesting things that used these tools and showed off these tools. And I think that's where I really got into the space.
So I feel like that was around the time that people used to describe, or a lot of people describe themselves as cypherpunks, and so I'm just curious, like, what that term means to you, and you know, like, would you describe yourself as one?
I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of a poser too. Like, I'd like to think I'm a cypherpunk, but I only discovered the cypherpunk manifesto after discovering Ethereum. So I think that just like strongly puts me in a poser category. But I try to be a cypherpunk, and when I'm going around to schools teaching people, like I teach people about those ideals and about self-custody, but also at the same time, like self-custody with a 12-word seed phrase is probably not for everyone. And if we want to bring in mainstream adoption, we have to look at like smart contract wallets and improving the UX and sort of like semi-custody models. And so I would say I try to be a cypherpunk, but I also want the whole world to use this tech, not just grungy Berliners. So I think that there are some trade-offs you have to make, and I think we should do the best we can for privacy and security and self-custody, but also we should try to bring the world on chain and go to where people are. And I think that still looks like, you know, crypto on your phone where you fingerprint in and it still settles, you know, in a smart contract. Not a 12-word seed phrase, because I don't think the whole world can do 12-word seed phrases. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, from my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like the early days of Ethereum had a lot of like cypherpunk energy, and it feels like over the years, crypto has kind of like shifted a little bit away from that. Why do you think that is?
I think that like, of all the cypherpunks that were going to get into Ethereum and start using it, they have already, right? And I think in terms of growth, we've exhausted the cypherpunk angle. And I think it's super weird. Like this morning was Roman Storm's trial hearing, and it's super weird to have guys that are writing software being found guilty of things. At the same time, we have banks saying we need privacy to be able to do, you know, like lending on chain. So here we are like thinking about how we would use zero knowledge proofs to create privacy to do lending on chain. And at the same time, a dude who used ZK proofs to create privacy is getting prosecuted by the United States. So we have these strange kind of like tensions here. And it's hard to navigate these, but I think that if we look at like SSL and HTTPS, like at first, like encryption was like the state hunted down people using encryption, right? And eventually we won. And because of winning that, like everyone can get on the internet and buy things and put in their credit card. And that's like table stakes for using a website now is using HTTPS. I think that this technology that we're building will be very similar to that, where they will fight it for a while, but eventually freaking JP Morgan needs privacy. We're going to need privacy on chain. We're going to need to build privacy tech. We need to stop throwing developers in jail for doing so.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. And since we're on the topic of like cypherpunk, open source tools, and you know this teaching, obviously you're the founder of Build Yield, and for anyone who's not familiar with it, that's probably the best place to start.
Speedrunethereum.com.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the best place to start to learn about Ethereum. So Can you maybe like tell people what is Build Guild, what's Speedrun Ethereum, what are all these like cool initiatives you're working on?
Yeah, I think that like the best way for a developer to figure out how and what and why to build on Ethereum is to like just tinker with some Solidity. And I think a lot of people get started with Remix or something like that where you can do it in the browser. But we created Scaffold ETH, so it's like, one line, you drop it in your terminal, and then you have either Hardhat or Foundry to do contract orchestration, and then you have Next.js front end. And so you have this like app building toolkit, but it's also like a tinkering toolkit. And so I released the first version of Scaffold ETH. A bunch of people used it and forked it. It like has more stars than Foundry, which is crazy. But it was kind of messy, and we released a new version of that, and I needed to like fund people. So that's where the Build Guild came around. I deployed smart contracts, loaded them up with ETH, and then streamed it to builders that were contributing to my open source tooling. And so that's where the Build Guild kind of grew up, is like this guild of builders coming in and building things on open source, and me rewarding them by streaming Ether to them. And then from having Scaffold ETH and these builders building, we kind of discovered we've got the tooling, we've got the builders, we really need the education. And so that's when Speedrun Ethereum came around. It started as just a repo, but now it's like speedrunethereum.com, and it's curriculum for learning what kinds of things to build on Ethereum. You build like a staking app and a dice game and a DEX and over-collateralized lending and a prediction market and a stable coin. Just like all these things that have product market fit, we have you build. And you learn all these like little aha moments, like first just like Ether versus Way and things like that. But then eventually like how incentives are very important for driving different behaviors within your app, and how to make something truly decentralized, you need to have like these incentives, and just how to build these different apps. It's actually really simple to build a lending platform, but like it's probably very hard to implement into production. And so we try to take you through all these like aha moments as a developer to teach you what kinds of things you can build. And same thing, like I stream ETH to developers to help me build these things. And now we have, Build Guild as the group of developers, we have Scaffold ETH, the tooling, and then we have Speedrun Ethereum, the curriculum. And then we're touring. If you just go to tour.ethereum.org, we're touring lots of different universities and organizations, and we're teaching them how to build with Scaffold ETH, how to build on Ethereum, how to speed run Ethereum. So there's teaching and workshops on top of the curriculum that's on top of the tooling, and all of that is kind of like this open source stack of people and products that kind of emerged from that early Build Guild, me deploying a contract streaming to people.
And speaking about useful resources, maybe less on the technical side, but more on like the why for crypto. One book I like read when I was in college was called Green Pilled by Kevin Owocki. And one of the first pages on that book is, I think it's titled Austin Griffith, Quadratic Freelancer. Yeah. What the hell is Quadratic Freelancer? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that Vitalik coined that term and called me the first quadratic freelancer. And what was happening is that was the days of burner wallets and meta transactions. I was basically getting on camera once a week and deploying something kind of like cowboy code style, and just like trying new things on the edge. Here's how you can, sponsor transactions for your users. Here's how your users can not have any ETH, but still sign messages and do things on chain. And at the same time, Kevin was pushing quadratic funding, and Vitalik really wanted to see quadratic funding. And there were like these first rounds of Gitcoin where there was money that was kind of from, I don't know, maybe from Vitalik or the EF. And then there was a community of people who would chip in a small amount. And using that quadratic formula, you could see that like, if someone was kind of a community favorite, they would bubble to the top. And that's where I think like because of one of those rounds, I like quit my job and started working full-time in the space. And that was like this quadratic freelancer idea that like that you can just have some random jabroni from the internet and he does good things and the community rewards them, and this matching fund detects that and kind of doubles or triples or quadruples the amount going to them, enough so that, you know, they're able to survive and do the thing that they're doing that's having impact.
I feel like DevRel now is, a lot of companies pay people to do DevRel, but I think you're one of the few people who, in the earlier days, was just teaching and building in public, not because it was profitable, but because like you cared about doing that. Obviously, you mentioned your parents were both teachers, but maybe can you tell me more about like where does your passion for teaching and building in public come from?
Yeah, it's the same thing of just like when you build an app and someone uses it and it makes you feel good. Like I can't really explain exactly what it is, but when I see a really cool technology and like I understand it, I feel this like urge to help other people understand it. And I don't know exactly what that is or why, but there's just like this inherent like, oh, I get it. And I feel like I can explain it in a way that someone else can get it. I'm gonna go do that and see what happens. And it just kind of snowballs from there, I think.
Yeah. What's the craziest project or app that you've seen built with some of your open source tools?
Oh man. So the best stuff we never find out about. Like everything is open source, all of our curriculum, all of our tooling, it's just in GitHub and you can fork it and take it. And for a while we had our own RPC in there, so we could sort of see people forking our tools because they didn't fork out the RPC yet. So we could go talk to some of them. We could tell there were like all these weird projects using it. But I can safely say that the weirdest and coolest thing I don't even know about, which is kind of sad. But I don't know. I think there have been, I was just at the 0x Park office, and the guys who made, it's called Dust now, but it was called Biomes before. It's like this whole open Minecraft world, but it's all on chain, and you can like program these little, you can program like the chests, the boxes, right? Or you can program like the force field, and it's all in smart contracts, and they needed a user interface for the smart contracts, and so they just like forked the scaffold ETH back into UI and used that. So I think that's that's a really fun example of someone using it. But I'd say the weirdest, probably strangest things I don't even know about, which is kind of good and bad, kind of double-edged. But yeah, people have used it to make millions of dollars because I can see addresses here and there, but I don't know who they are or what they're building, which is kind of weird.
What's like something you personally built in public that maybe it was like half-baked or you were embarrassed, but you...
Scaffold ETH. I mean, the tool itself. Also, like the burner wallet. Like when 2019, so it was 2018 in Prague or something. I was stuck in London in the airport, and I had this idea for a wallet where it's just like all in your browser, and you generate a private key that lives in local storage, and you run it on a side chain so it's fast and cheap, and it's just ugly, like it shows your balance, and then there's like a QR code that is like your receive, and it's just like super, super useful. And I remember we were in Prague and there was like a circle of people, and I like showed my QR code and a person scanned it with their phone, and then they had a wallet, and then a person scanned that with their phone, and then they had a wallet, and then I scanned them and sent them some money, and it was just happening like instant and fast and nice. And people started getting excited, and I saw that excitement, and then kind of we leaned into that for ETH Denver 2019, where we basically brought that experience to the hackathon, where you got a coin, it had a private key link on it, you scanned that, and you just had a wallet with money in it. And then you would go up to any food truck where you wanted to buy food, you would scan a QR code there, and then you would hit one button, and in a few seconds, you would have paid them on chain for that thing. And we were just paying with tokens at food trucks and doing all the self-custody stuff, and it was just smooth and fast. So that, like, I loved building that, and I'm like super proud of that. It was ugly and shitty, and the code was terrible. Like if you forked the old burner wallet code, I'm so sorry. And a lot of people did, and it was so bad and so gross. Like we see now, like vibe coded stuff, it was like the worst of the worst. Like, yeah, it was like a drunk machine had vibe coded it, because it did. It was me. But now you can do this same thing with like Punk Wallet. If you go to punkwallet.io, there's a very forkable stack built with the old scaffold ETH that has the same experience, that works on a bunch of networks. So we even cleaned that up and re-released it in a nice way. But we're going to see this, like this UX is about to happen with smart contract wallets, fingerprint. You'll scan something, you'll fingerprint, and everything will not be a 12-word seed phrase. It'll just be a smart contract wallet. It'll be this like fast and cheap thing because of now L2s. So we have L2s instead of side chains. We have smart contract wallets instead of burner wallets. So like this whole experience is finally coming to crypto, and I think that's probably going to be the thing that like allows mainstream audiences to actually interact with it.
And then maybe shifting a little bit towards the things that aren't being built or maybe not focused on enough. Like what are some apps or an app that you think would be really valuable right now in our ecosystem that's that you'd like to maybe shine attention on? Or
So that smart contract wallet interface, there's basically like a couple people building these. I think is it Ithaca or the Porto team? Like the team from Paradigm is building a smart contract wallet that does this kind of fingerprint to sign. And then Coinbase Wallet is doing their own smart contract wallet that's fingerprint to sign. But I don't know if there's like a great open source, generic, not captured by VC version of this. And I would love to see that, but it's a lot of work. And the guys who are working on this realize how complicated it is because of all the different chains. Now with 7702, you can either be an EOA or upgraded to a wallet or upgraded to a smart contract, and that can be different across different chains, and you can allow them to go back and forth. There's just a lot of complexity into this that like the old school burner wallet didn't have to worry about. It was one network and one private key and just like cowboy. But I think that this user interface is the thing that we need, and working backward from that, like however we have to get there, we should. But also I think we should be mindful of like the corporate capture or the walled garden that this will create, because I think this is the user interface of the future. For people using crypto, they're not gonna have 12-word seed phrases, they're just gonna fingerprint in and be done. But that could happen on a smart contract wallet that you can't move to other platforms on, and they could do a lot of work to keep you locked into the platform, which is kind of like against the whole ethos of what we're doing. So someone building that user interface in a very generic, usable, forkable way, but no one is financially incentivized to do that. And I think financial incentives at this point are the thing that control a lot of these things, these products that get launched. Also, I mean, prediction markets are rad. Anything that's not like deeply financial, like I'm excited about. Like games are awesome, but they're super hard to create on chain because you have to have the right like faucets and sinks and all of that to work correctly. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a, maybe not a too difficult question, but was there ever a time you gave up on like teaching or open source, and like what pulled you back in when you felt that way, if you ever did?
It's not like I ever gave up, but I mean, it's sad, like generally. Like crypto is a cesspool, like 100%. Like there are a shitload of bad actors. And if you are a young developer getting into Ethereum, for every one good person that tries to reach out to you, there will be 10 people that are trying to take money from you, are trying to get you to run something on your machine so they can steal your money, or they're trying to like trick you into using their shitty, not decentralized L1. And so it's just so disheartening and so sad to just wade through the garbage of crypto Twitter and what crypto has become, right? So it's not that I've ever stopped, but there are many moments where, you know, I get on for an interview and no one turns their camera on, and I can tell that they're about to ask me to like install something or run something, and I just like turn it off, and then kind of sit there in the quiet by myself for a little bit. Like, I'm getting old. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, why am I helping these scammers and this cesspool of folks? But there are really, really wonderful folks underneath, and the Ethereum community really brings this out. There is a thin layer of really amazing, really intelligent cryptographers, cypherpunks, application builders out there, but you have to wade through a lot of shit to get to them.
Yeah. Maybe to end it on a little bit more of a positive note, I think one thing I've personally noticed from the Ethereum Foundation is like a big investment in students and bringing in new developers into the ecosystem, which I think is like always very powerful. A lot of companies look at students maybe and they're like, oh, like they're not the best developers, or it's not the most profitable to invest in the student demographic. But I think recently the Ethereum Foundation has doubled down on students, in my opinion. Why do you think that is, and why now?
I think, yeah, in general, the Ethereum Foundation is kind of slowly course correcting a little bit, and the boat is changing a little bit. And I think that there was sort of a vacuum there that we hoped would be filled by good actors, and it kind of ended up remaining a vacuum or being filled by bad actors. So I think that just like the EF is starting to show up more, and that's an important thing, to just like show up and be there. Going back to me in 2018, going to ETH Denver and bringing my game, I felt very alone. And even when I showed it to people, no one really cared. And this creates like this really sad kind of developer who would love to just like be seen. And new folks coming in all the time, students or not, just need to be seen and need to be recognized. And you need to, maybe the thing that they're building still needs a lot of work, but you need to see them and recognize them and give them feedback and let them go back and cook something new or keep cooking. And by creating that vacuum, I think they didn't have that feedback loop. So showing up, I think, is a very important thing. And I think the EF is doing a great job starting to show up a lot more. And specifically, we're doing this tour.ethereum.org. If you or your university are looking for good mentors and teachers to come in to teach Ethereum, why do you build on Ethereum? How do you build on Ethereum? I'm doing like 3 virtual sessions a week with different universities around the world. And then we're going and visiting the most serious of them. You and I were just in Seattle a couple days ago doing one at the Eigen offices, which was awesome. But yeah, we are showing up for students, and I think that Ethereum builders are kind of old. Like, if you look at me, I'm an old man. Like, we need new blood. We need young people. And I think some of the young people are kind of captured by the pump and dump mentality right now that you see on some less decentralized L1s. And we need to bring back the youth and the cypherpunk and the just like gritty, let's like fucking build the awesome thing that the world needs kind of ethos and mentality, and let's do it open source and let's give it to the world. And I think that like students embody that, and that's kind of like something that I want to see and help mentor and push into the world, or pull into Ethereum.
Austin Griffith, thank you so much.
Hell yeah, thanks Mustafa.
Sweet.